Hey y'all, what's up? My name is Avery and today I'm going to be sharing with y'all 5 YA romance books. These are all contemporary books, by the way. There's no fantastical element to them. They're all contemporary. I thought this would be a really fun video to make because I read a lot of YA contemporary books because it's one of my favorite genres, and I wanted to spread the love about some contemporary YA books that you may not know about. And yeah, they're all romance books, mostly centered around the romance aspect, but there are bigger themes in the book other than romance. Like, it could be 50-50 between, say, like, romance and, like, trying to find yourself kind of thing. Romance is a big part of all of these books. So I read a lot of romance books. I love romance books. I have to have at least some kind of romance in almost every book that I read just because I love it. The way I consider books like YA romance books is there's not really that explicit part saying like adult books. I will say there is one book on this list that has explicit sex scenes, but I don't think it's an adult book. I'm sorry, I don't think so. There is sex in it, but it's not categorized as adult for me because since it is centered around teenagers. Same goes for one of the other books that I'm going to talk about today. I don't believe it is explicitly like a sex scene or something like that, but I believe sex is mentioned, so I just wanted to give a warning out for you guys. If y'all are not into that kind of stuff, I will be prefacing each book stating if there is mature content or not. So anyways, let's get into the video. The first book I'm going to talk about today is one of my more recent reads, and that is Letters to the Lost by Brigid Kemmerer. I still don't know how to pronounce her name, I'm sorry. So our first character in this book is Juliet, and she recently, a couple months ago, lost her mom. Her mom has passed away, and her mom was a famous photojournalist. Her mom used to travel a lot, so the way that Juliet and her mom stayed in contact was that they wrote letters to each other, and even after her mom's passing, Juliet writes letters to her mother to cope with the loss, and so she leaves letters at her grave. Our second character is Declan. He is in the midst of a court-ordered community service mowing grass at the local graveyard, while also trying to escape the demons of his past. But then one day he reads a haunting letter at the gravesite he works at and decides to write back. Soon he's opening up to a perfect stranger, and their connection is immediate. But neither Declan or Juliet knows that they're not entirely strangers. They actually have a relationship that's kind of bad in high school together. They know each other in high school, but they do not know that each other is the person that they are writing these letters to. But when life at school interferes with their secret letters, sparks will fly as Juliet and Declan discover truths that may tear them apart. So I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars, and I really enjoyed it. I say my only big critique that I have would have to be, I don't know, how fast the two open up to each other to a stranger. I personally wouldn't do that. I would have to get to know the person more, and I don't think I would be able to anonymously talk about that kind of stuff. It's deep. This book does go deep into some stuff, and I didn't think that it would go that deep. It didn't entirely make me cry, but it did make me tear up at points. This book is an emotional roller coaster, but I totally recommend if this interests you. I really enjoyed the two characters, even though they were kind of like cliches, but it's okay. I did think that this was a great representation of loss and the way of coping with that, and I just really enjoyed it, and I thought the romance in this book was great. I enjoyed it. I was smiling while reading this. The second book that I'm going to talk about today is Slammed by Colleen Hoover. This is another recent read for me. I read this one this month as well. So this story is about 18-year-old Lakin, and she is forced to become the rock for her mother and her brother right after her father's passing. Her family then moves all the way from Texas to Michigan because their house is foreclosing. There, Laken meets 21-year-old neighbor boy Will Cooper. And Will is super passionate about slam poetry. Within days of their introduction, Will and Laken have an instant connection, and this gives Laken a renewed sense of hope, but not long after their immense, intense, amazing first date, something is revealed that brings their relationship to a screeching halt. Daily interactions become impossibly difficult and painful as they struggle to find a balance between the feelings that pull them together and the secrets that might pull them apart. So I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars as well. I also forgot to say about the first book, there is no mature content, and there is also no mature content in this book, which I was very shocked by because I love Colleen Hoover's books, and I've only read the more recent ones. I believe this was her first one, and the more recent ones have like explicit sex scenes, so when there wasn't one in here, I was like, okay. But this is her first book, so she's probably grown with her writing and become more comfortable or more wanting to write sex scenes. I'm not sure, but there are no sex scenes in this book, I promise you. I really did enjoy this book. I loved their relationship. There's like so much angst in this book. Like, if y'all don't know me, I love angst in books, like the we can't be together, but we want to be together, and then like the I hate you, no I love you. Oh my gosh, I love it. I also really enjoyed the poetry in this book. I have always been a fan of poetry, modern poetry, not that old crappy English stuff that I had to learn in English literature class. I mean, that stuff is good and all, but like, I had a hard time understanding it, whereas in slam poetry, like, you can interpret it any way you want, and you don't have to write a critical review about it, you know? And I really enjoyed the poems in this book. Like, they were fantastic, and the way that Will is so passionate about slam poetry is awesome. And I loved seeing Laken and Will together, and the angst is obviously there that I talked about, and like, you will understand why there is angst when you read the book. I can't spoil it for you. There was like a plot twist in the book that I was like, I was not expecting that. Not expecting that. I don't know about other people, but I wasn't expecting the plot twist that happens in the book. I do plan on reading the next books in the series when I am home and by a bookshop, because there's no bookshop in the town I live in. So, but I totally recommend this book if it sparks your interest. And if you're wanting to get into Colleen Hoover's books, I believe this would be a great start for you. The third book that I have is The Problem with Forever by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This is a story about friendship, survival, and finding your voice. Growing up, Mallory Dodge learned that the best way for survival is to say nothing. And even though it's been 4 years since she's been saved from her nightmare, she's beginning to worry that the fear that holds her back will last a lifetime. Now, after years of homeschooling, Mallory decides to face a new milestone in her life, which is spending her senior year at a public high school. But she never imagined that she would run into Ryder Stark, the friend and protector she hasn't seen since her childhood. It doesn't take long for Mallory to realize that her connection with Ryder never really faded. Yet soon it becomes apparent that she's not the only one grappling with lingering scars from her past. And as she watches Ryder's life spiral out of control, Mallory must make a choice between staying quiet or speaking up for the people she loves, the life she wants, and the truths that need to be heard. I love this book so much. I don't have a physical copy with me because it is back home on my bookshelf. I couldn't take every book to college. I love this book so much. Basically, if you couldn't get anything out of that synopsis, Mallory was raised up in foster care with Ryder, but she was adopted. Then on her first day of high school, she comes in contact with Ryder, who she has not seen since she was maybe 8 or 10. And it's just them trying to relive their pasts and make a future for themselves, and I love it so much. This is the book that has the mature content in it. This is centered around teenagers, but there is mature content. There are explicit sex scenes, and if you're not into that, that's okay. I personally love this book so much, and I think that the romance and the physical connection that they have together just make the book like so much better and so much more authentic, and like it melts my heart to read this book, and every person that I've recommended this book to loves it. And of course I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. Totally recommend this book. Probably out of this entire list, this one is my favorite. The next book that I'm going to talk about is probably no stranger to booktube whatsoever, and that is Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. This story is centered around Kath, who writes a popular fan fiction centered all around Simon Snow, and in this fictional contemporary setting, Simon Snow is kind of like our Harry Potter. Her twin sister Ren has always been her best friend, but going into their freshman year of college, she tells Kath that she doesn't want to be her roommate. So Kath is completely on her own and completely out of her comfort zone. She's got a strange roommate that comes along with her boyfriend. There's a fiction writing professor that thinks that fanfiction is the end of the civilized world, and there is a handsome classmate who wants to do nothing but talk about words. And she can't stop worrying about her dad, who's loving and fragile and has never ever been alone. You could probably not really tell in the synopsis that this is kind of like a romance book, but as I said earlier at the beginning, of some of them are split like 50-50. Like, this story is probably more centered around Kath trying to find herself in a college situation, but there is an added bonus with the romance in this book, and I absolutely love the romance in this book. I won't tell you who the love interest is. I haven't read this book in a while, so I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure like you don't really know who the romance is until they speak their mind. So I love the romance in this book. I personally relate so much to Kath. Like, in college, I like to stay in my room a lot. I eat in my room. I read a lot of books. I am like her very immensely, and the way that the romance goes down is just like, can I have that, please? Anyways, I loved this book, and of course gave it a 5 out of 5 stars, and I probably should reread it soon because, I don't know, I just spent my first year in college, so it may open my eyes to more things. And the last book that I'm going to talk about today is My Life Next Door by Huntley Fitzpatrick. I did have this book on my shelves earlier in the semester, but I brought it home because I wasn't planning on rereading it soon, so I just brought it back home. But yes, I am planning on rereading this book because I want to read the other books in the companion series. The Garretts are everything the Reeds are not. They're loud, messy, and affectionate. And every day from her rooftop perch, Samantha Reed wishes that she was one of them. Until one summer, Jace Garrett decides to join her on that perch, and then changes everything. As the two fall for each other, stumbling through the awkwardness and awesomeness of first love, Jace's family embraces Samantha even though she's keeping a huge secret. Then something unthinkable happens and the bottom drops out of Samantha's world. She is suddenly faced with an impossible decision. Which perfect family will save her? Or is it time for her to save herself? This is a great story about family, friends, first romance, and how to be true to one person without betraying another. I personally, the first time I read this book, gave this a 3 out of 5 stars, but I do remember really enjoying it. My star rating has changed over the years, and I read this book years ago, so that's why I'm planning on rereading it, because I think I would enjoy it way more than I originally did. And I really enjoyed this book. I would have to say that the romance is the more central idea of this book, and I'm not 100% sure since it's been a while, but I was stating earlier how sex may be mentioned and like talked about, and they probably have it, but it's not like explicitly talked about. I'm not 100% sure. There may be a full-blown sex scene in this book, I'm not sure, but I don't remember there being one, so I don't know if you're not wanting to read that. I don't know if I could recommend it to you, but I really love this book because it just goes to show like opposites attract, and a family can like fully embrace someone and like bring them into their family even though they're not like blood related, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. And I will say this couple, like, oh, they're wonderful. And I really enjoyed the romance in this book. I loved it. Anyways, that was my YA contemporary romance read recommendations. Wow, that was alliteration. There you go. I hope you all check out one or some of these books. Let me know down below if any of them spark your interest or that you've read them. I would love to start up a conversation with you about them because I love fangirling over romance books. Like, that's what I do all the time. Anyways, thank y'all so much for watching, and I will see y'all soon with a new video. Bye.